It's only sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
As you know, folks, it's been decades, a generation, since Australia held the Bledisloe Cup, since their players were able to touch it. It's quite incredible that a guy called James Slipper, who's going to play his 140th test this weekend, never held that Bledisloe Cup, because you only get to hold it if you win it. We won it back in 2003, have held it ever since. And to win it back, they're going to have to beat us twice in a year, whether it's a 2-test series or a 3-test series. They've got to win twice. So we win in Sydney tomorrow, quarter to 6 start. Do remember that. And it's ours again, regardless of what happens in Wellington. Geoff Parkes from the Raw out of Melbourne joins us. Geoff, what chance do you give the Wallabies? Do they have any chance tomorrow night?
Well, it's going to be a pretty short segment, mate, because the answer is no. Look, I do think we'll see good things. We'll see good patches from them, like they had against Argentina in the most recent match there, particularly with the ball. I think there's definite evidence of some cohesion coming in and players getting used to the way Joe Schmidt wants them to play. And look, there's some skillful players in that side, and I think they'll do okay with the ball, and they will put a fair bit of pressure on the All Blacks, and the All Blacks will need to have their discipline about them, and that hasn't always been a strength, as we know. And if they do start giving away penalties at the breakdown and Australia gets some field position, well, you know, I think there's potential there for, you know, a pretty good contest. But on the other side of it, I don't think the Wallabies' defence is, they've had enough time together. They're, you know, really attuned to the patterns and you know, there were some gross breakdowns in defence against Argentina, and I think the All Blacks would have reviewed that hard, and they'll have some pretty clear ideas about how they can make hay. The other thing here, I'm looking out the window now in Sydney. It's beautifully fine. The forecast is great for tomorrow as well. So it'll be a dry track, and yeah, I think if the All Blacks get some go forward and get their running game going, it's going to be a tough day for the Wallabies.
What do we want to see from the All Blacks?
Well, just that, I think. You know, we have seen in the past this, in the recent past, this idea that they can come out like rock stars and throw the ball around and run sides off their feet. And invariably they get themselves into trouble if they do that too soon. So, you know, I would like to see some control play, some field position. I'm sure we'll talk about McKenzie in a minute, but one thing has become obvious in the last few games is that he is prepared to kick for field position from inside their own half more. So I want to see that. I want to see a solid set piece. I want to see the line-out working. I particularly want to see the line-out working when their replacements are made. It's a big game for Asafo Aumua. He just has to get that right. You know, and there's clearly a lack of trust there because he wasn't even brought back on in the second game in South Africa. So I want to see the basics delivered. I want to see more ball running. And there's been some promising signs from Tupou Vaa'i. Satidi's in the side for his running. We'll see plenty of that. Sevilla, we know, is going to go forward. And then from that, you know, that's when you want to see the back line come into play. There's nothing, you know, it's a pretty simple game plan, isn't it? But when that's executed well, the All Blacks can be unstoppable, particularly against the side against Australia. So that's what I want to see. And then I also want to see a continuation or more discipline in defence. And, you know, no cynicism, not giving away cheap penalties, competing well at the breakdown. That was a really good factor in the South Africa Cape Town test. They really did give the breakdown a shake there, so we want to see more of that as well.
Geoff, what does beating Australia by no matter how much do for us or tell us? Is it more a matter of, okay, look, we've got to accept the fact South Africa are better at the moment, but we got bloody close against them? Is what we want to see from the All Blacks an obvious improvement on what we've played this year, and also a progression to being, okay, if we're not beating the Box, we are beating everyone else in the world, because we've got these massive tests coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, dead right, Marty. And you can only play who's in front of you. That's old cliche, but it's true. And, if they do win tomorrow, and people will say, oh, well, that's just what you expect. I mean, there's going to be a bit of that, right? And there's nothing they can do about that. So they'll be measuring themselves by their own standards, and it's about how they play. And I think you're dead right to look at this year, the first year under Razor, and say, right, well, here's where it started off. Here's where we were in the first game, and they did scrape 2 good wins against England, and that shouldn't be discounted. And we've had a blip against South Africa, but not a total disaster. And now we're starting to move forward again, and then there'll be a big test at the end of the year. And look, none of that's to denigrate Australia. But the fact is, and look, we'll look pretty silly if there is a massive upset, but I just don't see it happening. So they can just play who they play, do as well as what they want in the context of the year, building towards the Northern Hemisphere. And let's not discount too, Marty, the Bledisloe Cup is still an extremely prestigious trophy, and just because they've won it for 22 straight years, it doesn't take the gloss off it. In fact, it just makes every side more determined not to be the first side to lose it. Imagine that as a player, coming off the field knowing you've lost the Bledisloe Cup after all that time. So it's a pretty big motivator, and I don't think the team at all underestimates Australia or devalues the Bledisloe Cup when they're playing for it.
We've just got to be honest here, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with... Look, I mean, I'm just embittered to my soul that we've lost 3 test matches already this year, and I fear what might happen up the Northern Hemisphere. But, at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, all that we can do, and I'm saying this from just being a dumb old All Blacks fan, is just get out there and just play really well against this team and put them to bed however we put them to bed, and then look at the game next week. Isolate, separate.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I don't think there would be any talk, certainly not with the players, but even with the coaching group, I don't think they'll be looking too far ahead at all, and certainly not at the end of year tour. They've got to get through these next 2 weeks and really make a statement. And then coming out of that, right, it's reset for the North Tour and deal with what they have. I'm not so fearful as you. I think one thing, we spoke about this before the South African games, even though the All Blacks lost, they're never fearful. They might lose to a better side on the day, or they might not play as well as what they want, but they're never fearful of any opposition, and that'll be the same when they go north again this year. But I couldn't agree more. Let's worry about that in a couple of weeks' time, and let's get through what's in front of the team tomorrow.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.